And take a look at these new images of Ian. These were taken aboard the International Space Station as the storm moved into Florida. And these visuals give you a better idea as to just how massive this storm system really is. President Joe Biden says the federal government is on alert and in action as Ian bears down on Florida, the potentially historic storm expected to cause catastrophic damage. And the impact of Ian will be felt long after the storm moves on. Mike Valerio joins us live now from Washington, D.C. with a look at those impacts and how the federal government aims to help. Mike?
And you know, Leah, the nerve center for FEMA, its Mission Control Center, is just a couple blocks from where we're standing right now. And during an emergency news conference, Leah, we heard about plans to save lives that have been in the works for a week now.
As Hurricane Ian slams Florida's west coast,
we'll be there at every step of the way.
President Joe Biden is promising federal resources to help. FEMA's top priority, search and rescue.
These teams will coordinate search and rescue efforts by land, air, and sea. We have 128,000 gallons of fuel remained ready for rapid deployment.
FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell says they have generators ready to restore power to critical infrastructure. They've also gathered 3.7 million meals and 3.5 million liters of water in Alabama.
There are multiple volunteer agencies that are staged and prepared to perform feeding operations as soon as it is safe to do so.
More than 2,000 flights canceled so far Wednesday, according to FlightAware. If the storm stays on its current track, flooding could cripple the I-4 and I-75 corridors, straining supply chains to and from the state. And while there are concerns damage to Florida's signature crop could cause the cost of oranges to spike, Ian is not expected to pose a major threat to national oil and gas supplies.
I want to add one more warning. That's warning to the oil and gas industry executives. Do not, let me repeat, do not use this as an excuse to raise gasoline prices or gouge the American people.
So, Leah, a few other things that FEMA is coordinating just a couple steps away from Capitol Hill. They are the ones who are coordinating the urban search and rescue flood teams. They are all assembling in Miami, people from around the country, and it's going to be the signal from right here for those teams in Miami to go into the disaster zone once it is safe to do so. Another thing, you know, since FEMA is often this amorphous concept that people hear from in D.C., something that FEMA is tracking from their nerve center, they're going to be looking at all the hospitals, retirement homes, nursing homes, and dialysis centers that have people who could not evacuate. These are the people who could be in the most danger. So it's the job of people working all night here in D.C. to make sure that they're safe and make sure that they're accounted for, Leah.
Thank you, Mike. Of course, our thoughts are with all of those people in Florida right now. And before you go, you mentioned that it looks like the supply for oil and gas won't be impacted by the storm, but could we possibly see prices spiking because of this?
Yeah, that remains to be seen, an open question, which is why we included that warning. It was so notable coming from President Biden at the end of the story in a very separate event that didn't have anything to do with the hurricane. President Biden certainly doesn't need a crisis like price gouging under his watch when Florida, much of the state, with the exception of, the Miami metropolitan area, is in such a crisis mode. So while we are expecting the infrastructure, as we mentioned, to largely be okay, it remains to be seen whether or not the oil companies are going to heed that warning and regular gas stations as well. The president putting that warning out there, also asking the Department of Energy and the Federal Trade Commission to be on the watch as well so that, insult is certainly not added to injury here for the people of Florida.
Mike Valerio live from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, Mike.
You bet.